So, yeah, just let everyone know I'll be recording this meeting. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Hong Zhang. Hong and I go way back to 2020 in the before times, before the pandemic. We did a data science fellowship together in New York City. Actually, Hong, I was trying to remember what your project was for that fellowship.
It has nothing to do with healthcare.
That's all right, neither did mine.
Um,
As I'm sure you'll talk about, getting open source healthcare data is really difficult to do data science projects.
yeah.
So, Hong and I were together for a data science fellowship that then got interrupted and had to go remote because of the pandemic. And unlike me, who had to invent a job for myself, Hong actually was successful and got a job. Um, so in this series, we really wanted to give the listeners a sense of all the different kinds of spaces there are and projects there are in health informatics. We started with Nikki Dinsey, who's very much, an academic who's kind of experimenting, trying things out, putting things out there, trying to understand the limits of projects like Chat GPT, Chat GPT-4, right? And what understand, sort of the tools better, right? And publish about that. We heard from Dr. Jason Cross last week. He's very much in a startup space. He's very business minded. He talked a lot about the business case for blockchain based electronic health record systems in healthcare. And it's actually engineers week. So it's very appropriate that we hear from an engineer for this talk. And so Hong is at IQVIA, and he'll explain a little bit more about IQVIA and the company, but this is a very, very large enterprise. And we're going to hear more of the sort of machine learning perspective from Hong. So I hope you enjoy the talk, and I'll turn it over to him.
Yeah, sure. Well, let me see if I can figure out how to share the screen. Um, Megan, can you allow me to share the slide?
My apologies.
So, yeah, probably this will also be a more from the engineer and product side of the talk, and probably will kind of scale back to a little bit more fundamental stuff about what we're trying to achieve, more or less agnostic of the technologies that we're using. And but in the end, probably we have to talk about large language models and generative AI in some capacity because that's where the buzzwords are going nowadays. And you're basically being left behind without at least mentioning these words. But I will probably give a more kind of realistic view about the challenges and how to actually bring something that with those kind of technology into production and actually benefit people. So let me start it. So I did my PhD from University of Pennsylvania in linguistics. So a lot of my projects is NLP related. I will touch upon that a little bit later. And right now I'm a senior machine learning engineer in IQVIA. So I will so today's talk, it will be something following this structure, right? So I will first give a overview of some of the use cases and applications that we're developing across the organization, like the broad organization. And then I will go deeper into something like more specific use cases and products that that I've been involved in developing in NLP space, and then talk about how like more recent work on generative AI and LLM and how to productize those. So So to start with, so what IQVIA, I mean, our organization is offering across the board. Basically, it covers the entire life cycle for life sciences and healthcare related problems and applications. So it basically offers five main platforms as what the marketing team has been uh, phrasing it. So it basically covers the research and development of, say, medication and clinical trials, and to the regulatory compliance related applications like the identification and compliance prediction and approval, kind of minimize the risk for a denial of approval from the authorities and keeping track of the regulatory changes for healthcare related issues, and asset management, patient journey management, and then all the way until commercial and launch of a healthcare life science product. Mostly how to manage customer relations and do the marketing and the market building, which is what our my current team has been focused on. And to see how these kind of comprehensive offering can benefit the life cycle of life science products. So we can see that the organization's offering basically covers from the research discovery, patient recruitment, clinical trial, all the way to kind of manage the patient journey. So there are data for like different applications that we are developing. There are different groups, different teams, working on very drastically different problems related to different aspects, and there are specialized products for all of these applications mentioned in here, using various technologies and the vast data assets that the organization manages. So IQVIA is merged from Quintiles and IMS Health, and one of them is was a leading consulting company that manages a bunch of data assets, and the other is more of a med tech company that develops software and enterprise data solutions. So the joint company, which is now known as IQVIA, basically offers a pretty much comprehensive from consulting, data acquisition, data management, all the way to AI ML offerings that benefits a lot of the applications in different areas of interest across the entire life cycle of a life science product. So given this background, here's a brief overview of the history of the offerings from the organization, right? So as we can see, there's like drastic boundary around 2020, 2021. Actually, probably a little before that. So we can see that before this boundary, then the primary product offerings and focuses was on tabulated data, or we call that structured data, where basically you can put your data into some kind of tables, right? You have columns representing different features or factors that some applications can use, like you can record some patient properties in a column and then structure a data table that kind of encompasses, say, patient history to some extent. However, that's kind of data format, like tabulated data, only captures a very small fraction of the available information out there through other data media, right? So many of you probably are doctors and other healthcare professionals. You are aware that in, for example, medical records, most of the information is contained in doctor notes, right? So if you only have tabulated data, you basically miss a whole chunk of information that's are otherwise contained in unstructured text that are not readily available for analysis from a more traditional perspective. And as this graph shows, there's a graduate shift from focusing on tabulated structured data to how to use technology to mine the unstructured data to extract more robust insights for the problems that we're solving. So this is not saying that before this kind of cutoff period, people are not interested in that. Just the technical barrier was higher for developing more robust and reliable applications that can extract those information from unstructured data effectively and efficiently. And with the advancement of NLP technology and more later on, like last year, what we've seen with large language models, the accessibility of text mining and understanding unstructured data become higher. So it's more accessible for a broader audience, and the technology is getting more mature in that sense. So in the next couple of minutes, I will go over some of the basics of mining unstructured text with NLP technology with two case studies that I've been involved in to basically demonstrate what are the benefit and applications of NLP and text mining can have for real world life science and healthcare product offerings. And after this, I will kind of discuss a little bit more on the like more frontier of the technology, like what's the buzzwords people have been hearing about, and shift towards a little different application that utilizes the power of large language model and generative AI more broadly. So what an NLP engine does, particularly in this like understanding of the unstructured text documents. So basically the problem statement is something like this, right? So you have a bunch of documents and a bunch of text, which is not annotated, and you can imagine just some random PDF documents or some text documents with just lines of text in there, right? And what's actually useful information in these kind of documents are particular, say, if you mention some disease symptoms, some medication, some dosage that are used in this particular patient, maybe concerning certain conditions. Like you are interested in some disease symptoms in the documents, you are not interested in others, and there are some intricate relationships like negations, family history, past history, these kind of information that are not annotated. What you want is some documents that with annotation so that you can manipulate it and extract those annotated text terms and kind of understand, okay, this is what's happening from these documents. And you want to build some kind of summarization engine such that you don't really need to go over the maybe pages or a couple of paragraphs of documents. Rather, you can have, say, a couple sentences that can summarize the content and key points of these documents. So this is the process of transforming unstructured data into some more structured format or less unstructured format, so that the information within this data can be used to benefit some other downstream tasks. Say you can build a classification model based on the terms and conditions you extracted from the document, and you can say use the extracted terms and conditions to benefit applications like patient cohort construction, say like put what patient into what clinical trial group, for example, like this. So basically the task is that we want to have an engine such that can automatically retrieve the relevant information or perform some other text, say summarization, paraphrases tasks that can condense in the information and transform that into some format that are more formatted that can be readily used by other method and models. So visualization of these is something like given a text, given a sentence, we can get some like highlighted markup of the key sections, words, phrases that are interested in the document. So the major benefit of this is that we can uncover a lot of hidden information from the documents, and also we can reduce the manual labor in parsing and reading through these documents. Because one like more primitive approach for accomplishing this task is to have some human reader and read through these text and then mark out all the information that you need, which is something very laborious and time consuming. And we can use the extract information to do analytics. So give a more concrete example, say if you want to parse some EHR data, right? So basically like a EHR, something like this, we have some paragraphs, doctor notes, and like some table basically summarize some of the conditions and dosage that's used here, and some other text, right? So basically what we want to have is that we want extract the relevant information and make some kind of categorization for each of those. Like we want to see what are the features about the demographics of the patient, what are the, say, the mission dates, or what are the measurements that's being used for the sample. And we probably want to extract social determinants so we can know some of the other risk factors for, say, medical or social conditions that need to be flagged and reviewed. And also symptoms, diseases, and medications. So such an application, I mean, natural language processing and text mining technology, essentially what they're achieving in healthcare space is to do something just like this. No matter what technology you're using and what fancy words that you're hearing, but all the like text mining aspects of these boils down to transform some unstructured text into some structure that can be understood. And essentially, like if you think of a machine, some kind of algorithm or machine learning algorithm, what you need to have essentially is some tabulated data, and you can feed this into some classification model or regression model and achieve some other task. So the transformation from text to more usable structured data is the key to have a good NLP application, at least for text mining use cases. So given this like very basic understanding of what NLP is doing, what text mining is doing in healthcare, processing healthcare related documents, I will give two case studies of how we can benefit from these. So the first one is social determinants of health. So I'm not sure like how familiar people are with these problems that a lot of people are trying to solve. Basically, here's the definition of social determinant of health, right? Basically, it's like the conditions of environments where people live and how like their birthplace, life, and learning, working condition can be used to predict what are the quality of life, right? And some of the risk factors that related to their health. So by some groupings, you can kind of then define social determinants of health into different categories like education, access and quality, economic stability, social and community context, etc. And this is important because understanding the social economic background of a patient can help to contribute to reduce the inequalities for, say, access to healthcare. Say, for example, if people who don't have access to grocery stores with healthy food, and they're less likely to get good nutrition, and this may increase their risk of getting some health conditions. And if we have access to, if we can understand the socioeconomic background of these patients, we understand this background, then we can as a healthcare provider, we can provide more focused and targeted maybe treatment or service assistance to this patient, so we can better improve the quality of his life. And what application of NLP system for social determinants of health can do? Right. So basically,
There's no audio. You're muted.
The speaker is muted.
Yeah, it looks like he is muted.
Hey, Hong, your speaker got muted.
okay. So yeah, sorry about that.
Maybe just begin at the beginning of the slide. Sorry about that.
Okay. Sure. So did I cover this well before I was muted?
Yes, right at the beginning of the next slide.
Okay.
If you wouldn't mind picking up. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, sure. So I was basically just trying to give a overview of the workflow of this social determinant of health application that we've developed and served to our clients. So basically what the workflow is something like this, right? So you have a bunch of documents, some text like doctor notes and whatever for the patient. And for that, we have a social determinant of health model, which is a collection of models that achieves different tasks, right? It contains some classification models, some like NLP engine to extract the key term information from the text. And on top of that, we send some pipeline to do classification to classify the patients into different risk categories, different groups, and then we flag, basically put the patient into different categories, and then we flag the patient if there's something that needs attention, and then we send the results from these models to a human, mostly a healthcare provider, and let that person review the information so that we can get some validation about the flag, and then the next step is to kind of just send the patient to the appropriate resources or provide the appropriate assistance for the particular situation that the patient is in. So our system here basically classifies is the social determinant of health into 14 base categories, and then there are over 60 subcategories. As you can see, it covers from, say, ambulatory issues, food insecurity to financial issues. That covers basically all aspects that a person may face in their life that can be a challenging factor in improving the health and quality of life. And basically, this model just process a bunch of documents for that patient, and then kind of monitoring the situation of the patient constantly, and assign to a different category. And then with these, we can have a bunch of downstream applications and deliver the benefits to the patients, like improve risk monitoring, deliver targeted intervention, etc. So here's a kind of more concrete case study of the application, how it actually benefits the user. So in one of our partners hospital, there was a patient admitted, present with headache, nausea, and dizziness. And we run this patient's profile through the engine, the models for social determinant of health. And then the model gives back a flag. These two flags, basically. The patient could be a victim of a crime or victim of an abuse, and then we send these two flags for the healthcare provider for review, and then it determined that the patient needs like different, more specific assistance for treating, say, PTSD, and some legal assistance to help with the particular situation that this individual is in. So this basically uncovers some of the information that the patient may not be willing to share in their interview with the healthcare providers, and it basically uncovers what the patient actually needs, but otherwise ignored or dismissed due to various conditions. So we can see that the power of models like this can improve the quality of life of the patients just by uncovering the hidden factors that are missed or dismissed. And we can see that from this deployment with this client, there are like 56 more patients for social determinant of health, the needs that would otherwise be neglected. So we can see that from a machine learning perspective, these tasks are relatively well defined, right? From pure technology perspective, you think about what the NLP engine was doing. And on top of that, with those backbone applications, we can extend this to with those backbone models, we can extend that to some real world use cases and actually benefit the quality of life of people. That's really awesome. The benefit that technology can bring to us. The second case study that I want to mention here is called HCC coding for risk adjustment. I'm not sure like how many people are familiar with this because apparently I'm not from a healthcare background, and a lot of you may be more like an expert in areas like what I'm talking about here. So but like in case you don't know, so hierarchical conditional condition category HCC coding, essentially it's a risk adjustment model to basically estimate how much health care payer should pay for the cost for patient treatment, right? So it's a kind of a value-based payment system that determines how much a person should pay based on the value of the service that a patient receives, rather than say pay per visit, which is highly inefficient and which may lead to overpay for a lot of the patient for a lot of the time. So HCC is essentially a risk adjustment formula, like it assigns a code to a different disease and symptoms, and use that code, the healthcare provider can, the payer can calculate a risk adjustment factor score based on the formula, so that they determine the value of the service and the potential outcome of the treatment for a patient. So this is in my opinion, it's a good way to like a payment model that can improve the equity and access of healthcare, and it will give it will make the healthcare service more efficient in terms of how much it pays, how much service the patient receives. But to actually implement this kind of payment model, there are a bunch of pain points that whoever adopts this will face. So the cost of reviewing the healthcare or medical records can be expensive. And thinking about this as the same task, right? So I mentioned earlier that we want to identify the terms and conditions from a vast amount of text and give a label to that. This essentially is doing the same thing, right? We need manual labor to go over all those documents and identify all the terms and conditions that contained in the document, and then flag them and then assign a label to that. So if we do that all manually, that involves a lot of annotation, a lot of labeling effort, and that will also come with a bunch of uncontrollable factors like human errors and coder. So first, it's really hard to train a coder, and it's expensive to hire a coder, and also they come with the risk of making incorrect predictions for the labels that assigning to the document. And that will also down the line will cause compliance risks. So what's the application that we've developed for kind of automating this process? Essentially, follows similar workflow, right? We have a bunch of input text, and then we have a model or a pipeline to process this document. And in the end, what we want to have is some kind of marked up documents that identifies, okay, from these chunk of text, we can have evidence to assign a code to it, and then based on the code that we assigned from different sections of the document, we will give a like a final evaluation estimate of what's the HCC code for this patient is. So we can improve the efficiency and accuracy of medical record review, and like make this risk adjustment model more accessible and cheaper to implement. So these are some of the technical details that we've considered here. So basically a little bit background of where HCC codes are from. So essentially it's mapping from ICD-10 codes, and this is the space that we're gonna code. Like there are 86 categories that we want to code each document into. So I will skip the like discussion on what ICD-10 code is and some of the peculiarities of that. I think most people should be more familiar than I am. And so from a machine learning perspective, essentially what we're doing for a given input text is a text classification problem, right? So it's actually a relatively more challenging problem, right? Because it's a multi-class, multi-label classification problem, right? So multi-class meaning that for each text we have, I mean, for the text, we can classify it into a very large number of classes. So for HCC code, we need to classify text chunks into say 86 different classes, which is a high number. And for a classification problem, it faces say label imbalance and some like related, like you need to have a higher number of documents to train a model that works well, and some like the additional annotation burden for collecting training data and etc. And it's also a multi-label classification, which basically means that for a same text, you can classify it into multiple labels. Like one text can belong to multiple different classes. So that requires some design of a different loss function in training the model. And there are many-to-many mapping that like it also causes a problem of how to evaluate the performance of this system, etc. So but the end goal is that we want to have like automated code that generated, I mean, the HCC code that's generated automatically from this NLP model. So these are some more specific challenges that we faced in developing a system like this, right? So essentially for some, there are many to one mapping of the conditions to the code, which makes leaves more room for a classification error. And there's a problem of incongruent like text snippets that are useful for making a decision of what the final code should be, can be scattered all over the place in the document. And for giving classifications, we like, because the philosophy that our applications were built in was to have a human in the loop, right? So I think probably this might be less obvious for other applications, but for healthcare and life science related applications, we cannot risk to make positive false predictions, right? So the cost of error can be really high. And so the philosophy of having a human in the loop basically is an effort trying to reduce the unnecessary errors that many machine learning models can kind of bring. So to achieve that, we need to provide evidence, like why we make this decision. We probably want to have some way to tell the human reviewer, okay, this is the predicted code and this is why, and then if in case there are some issues, some mistakes in the prediction process, this can be caught by a human eye, and yeah, just reduce the risk of making errors. So from a pure linguistic perspective, there are a bunch of issues that with the input text that we're dealing with. So so if you're a doctor, you're a healthcare professional, you kind of understand what this is all about, right? So when you write doctor notes, there are a bunch of things that may cause challenges to a system like this. And some of them are more challenging, like negation abbreviations and the temporal expressions and some like dosage detection and those kind of things. So, but and also as you can see from these, all these are boiled down to the foundational problem that I mentioned, right? Trying to extract the relevant information and text from, text span from the input document, including say dosage and synonyms of different disease symptoms, right? That's basically so as you can see, these for different applications, there are particular challenges, but all the challenges can be boiled down to a basic problem that text mining solves. So given all these considerations, so our application basically derived a pipeline that combines, say, both query and text classification models and some kind of mapping and normalization step, so that we run attacks through this pipeline and give a prediction of what are the codes that are associated with this input text document, so that we can send some text through this engine, and then we have some kind of review interface so that we provide these benefits to our clients, right? Mostly reduce the medical chart review time and increase the reliability of the coding performance, and also identify improved risk adjustable diagnosis and provide a kind of easier way for the payer to do the cost estimate, and also could potentially give the patients more information about their future healthcare cost burden. So this is another way, like another application I think really benefits both the patients and the payer, and makes the billing system more efficient and improve the quality of the healthcare that the patient receives in the future. So the applications and the fundamental problems that I described earlier was kind of agnostic to the specific technology that a developer might consider, right? So I didn't really mention what models that we've used and what are the kind of architecture, put it in a fancier way, for machine learning, deep learning people. So, but no matter what the technologies that people are using, the fundamental problem remains the same for the applications that we can develop with NLP for text mining. And so in the era of generative AI and large language models, right? So we've been getting requests to kind of up our game in like what are the LLM offerings that you can bring and how can you kind of use this new technology to benefit the product that you already have. So and also we have received some kind of pushback from the AI and I mean generative AI and large language models, right? Because healthcare, or I'd say mostly pharma companies, they are more conservative in terms of adapting to new technology. And also it's a highly regulated and a high stake business. So um, the quality of the product that whatever product that we deliver needs to be very high in compliance to all the regulatory and other privacy constraints that that our clients require. And so before kind of give an overview of what's the problems and risks that's associated with this and what's the concern of our clients, I want to kind of go back and get people to understand what the language model is and what generative AI is. So when they make a request, when they try to bring in the new technology, they will understand like deeper what is the potential issue or what are the intrinsic problems with this kind of methodology. So I think one misconception that I kind of encounter from a lot of the stakeholders and product people is that they think large language models actually understands things. They are kind of a step towards something called AGI, artificial general human intelligence, something like that. But if you look at what a language model is doing, right? So you will quickly find that it doesn't really understand the thing that a human does, right? So one good example is that LLMs are really bad at doing mathematics, right? So even if you say like the situation that's been set up nowadays is that you give some context, like give a little context about the task and what the language model is expected to achieve, and then the language model is expected to do whatever you instruct them. But the reality is that for certain tasks, like if you want to say let a large language model do some manipulation of mathematics, like do some numeric calculation, it probably won't do that right. That's mostly just because the language model is basically a model that try to represent the probabilistic distribution of words, right? It does nothing more than that. And for a large language model, it's just the language model, but it's bigger, it's trained on a larger set of data, and it's trained on a more diverse kind of task. So it can perform better with certain given context. Like if you see, if the model is trained on, say, instruction following, so it will perform better when you give certain types of instructions and compared to maybe others. Large language models are struggling understanding table structure, but that's partly because the table structures are kind of hard to get by to get parsed from like text processing perspective, right? So if you think about how a table is processed in a machine, it's basically converted into a bunch of strings of characters and text, and then a lot of the table structure, the structural information got lost in the process. So basically what I'm trying to say here is that large language models are basically a powerful, better representation of how the distribution of words is in real world or in the world of the training data and task that is being trained on. So and it's inherently some, like the modern language models are inherently, like a lot of those are generative models, meaning that it can generate stuff. Like you give it a prompt, it can generate additional text content for you. That's the generation process. But how the model achieves this is essentially nothing more than based on some generative modeling approach. What it does is that it assumes a new example from the same distribution of the existing examples is basically generated through some sampling approach, right? It basically makes a sample according to the distribution of the features that you train the model, and then generate a new instance of the item that you're interested in. So it's essentially a probabilistic approach, meaning that there's margin of error, and it's highly sensitive to what you are trained on, what's the context, what's the conditions that you give for the generation. And it's essentially a sampling process. So the generative stuff is some combination of the existing features. You can think of it as that way. But like since the model is huge and there are so many parameters, and the generating process is random, so you get infinite number of combinations of possible you can get infinite number of possible combinations of the filters. So that's why the generated item is unique for different applications. So keep this in mind. You will see that the issues and limitations of these generative AI can be more or less readily understood, right? So the generated data can be unreliable, they can hallucinate, basically making things up. And there are security issues because you can have some kind of copyright exposure and security exposure because sometimes it just happen to generate something more similar to what's the model is being trained on. And these are not what the healthcare application is expecting, right? So for industry like life sciences and healthcare to adapt to these new technologies, more care should be taken to address these issues, especially for hallucination and the compliance related issues. Because we don't want to give false information related to health and patient care. One very good example for hallucinations that the chatbot Air Canada developed, basically made up some refund policy out of the blue, which is not something that, I mean, it has risks for airline and for refund, yes, but it's not that high stake compared to, say, if you give a wrong diagnosis, delayed the diagnosis process for a patient, that will cause much more severe trouble than, say, making up a refund policy. So that's something that development of any applications using this technology has to be very careful about. So, but it doesn't mean that we cannot kind of take advantage of the power of these models. So the example that I want to give here in the last 5 minutes is basically a platform that we've been building to kind of manage the information, the data in the commercial life sciences, right? So the platform basically provides data support and can have different intelligence components like machine learning algorithms to making recommendations for customer engagement, customers information management, marketing, all those kind of applications for commercialization, right? And the key challenge for a user to use the system is that it has so many components and it can be hard to navigate, and the barrier to use the application is high. So what's the application that we've envisioned and have been developing is a tool such that a user can kind of more easily interact with this complex system with natural language. So this basically, it has its challenges. For example, using natural language to perform complex tasks, especially communicating with a database, is inherently challenging because it touches upon another application of natural language processing in building system, like in healthcare, life science related applications, other than text mining, is to understand human language, right? Human language understanding, right? And also it's also challenging to generate content based on findings from tabular data, as I mentioned earlier. And in addition to that, since this is a highly regulated area for application, so our clients have very stringent requirement on how the application can be deployed, what data can be exposed, and how their data can be consumed, what can leave their cloud, what cannot. So given all these challenges, so we, as a developer, we need to first we need to work with limited data and limited access to the resources we would want, and also we need to package the software in a way that it's not reliant on too much of the outside information, meaning that we cannot just call an API from ChatGPT. We have to build everything in-house. We have to package the models, the processes, the API calls, kind of in silo, kind of separated with the internet. Rather, it should be able to function within the intranet of the deployment environment. And also there are requirements for the quality of the results and latency, like from user experience perspective. So this is overview of the workflow of how this system is working right now, and kind of where the LLM and NLP technology actually helps in this process. And given the interest of time, because I think we're out of time right now, I will kind of skip this, but jump to the final kind of thoughts on what, from my experience, what is more crucial than kind of chasing whatever is trendy in the technology space in developing a more successful healthcare life science applications and utilize the best of machine learning and AI technologies. So I think it boils down the key components like these. We need to have a good communication with the end users of the product, understand what the market needs, what they need. Basically, a good communication between engineers like us and maybe the practitioners like you guys. And also we need to have a good understanding of the technology itself, right? Not just chasing, okay, not just chasing the marketing put out by, say, ChatGPT or Microsoft. Rather, we need to kind of understand, okay, these are the models. We can boil it down to the basic bare bone fundamentals of what those models are and what they can achieve, and their kind of intrinsic problems that we need to solve. And given the understanding of those two aspects, then we can translate the real world problem into more engineering, realistic engineering task. And then in the development process, we need to have a good communication between different stakeholders, different parties involved, and then just sit there, build. So I think this is the last slide. And yeah, so I don't know, maybe it's a little bit random, the topics in the whole talk, but I hope it will be helpful to kind of understand some of the perspective from like a developer, and some of the real world examples that we've developed and can actually serve the goods for people. Yeah, thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Hong. Would it be all right if we open it up for questions now? Do you have a few minutes?
Actually, I do have a call right now, at night, because they kind of schedule something right after this.
Okay, no problem. No problem. So if anyone needs Hong's contact information, would it be all right if I shared
Yeah,
it
yeah,
with
yeah.
the class?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if anyone has any follow-up questions, etc., just let me know and I can put you in touch with Dr. Zhang. Thank you so much for speaking with us this morning, and yeah, I wish you a good meeting and a good rest of your day.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for inviting me. And I'm really glad to talk this kind of stuff that I otherwise would rarely have an opportunity to talk about. So yeah, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Sorry, I have to jump.
Yeah, go ahead, please. I'm ending the call now.
Yeah, sorry about that. Cool. Bye.